As many of you know, 2K worked out a deal with the NFL a couple of years ago to bring back official NFL 2K games, and while they're going to be arcade-style games, a lot of people close to the situation have said that 2K is going to make the game as realistic as possible, and that game is finally set to be dropping at the end of this year when football season starts up again. Now, originally this game was supposed to come out in 2021, but it got pushed back a couple of times because it simply wasn't ready yet, and knowing 2K, they don't want to release a game that isn't ready, and this is going to be their first NFL game in almost 20 years, so they definitely want to make sure to get it right. Now, a lot of people do want another simulation NFL game, and while that can't happen for the next few years until the NFL revisits the exclusive licensing agreement with EA, 2K did say that they want to make the game as realistic as possible for an arcade style game. Now, exactly how realistic are they going to be able to make it? That we don't truly know yet, because the NFL does have some say in this. The game can't be too realistic because that can cause some problems, seeing as they have that exclusive agreement with EA. But if they're going to make the game as realistic as possible, that still leaves a lot open for a game with good depth, which 2K said that's one of their main focuses, is to make it a big experience with a lot of depth that you've come to know and love from their different series over the years. And it does leave us open for some solid gameplay. The gameplay could be pretty realistic if maybe it's a 7-on-7 game and maybe the player models are a little exaggerated. That would still qualify as an arcade game even if the gameplay itself was a little bit more on the realistic side. We don't exactly know what approach they're going to take, and we should be learning more about this game very soon because everything is pointing to it finally coming out at the end of this year after a couple of delays. There's really no reason for them to continue pushing it back as they've had plenty of time to work on it, and the NFL really wants this game out. So if you don't want to miss out on any of the news about this game over the next few months, make sure you subscribe and turn the bell icon on so you don't miss any of these important updates. But what I want to talk about today is something that's really interesting, and it's something that 2K did in their NBA game a few days ago. They actually started putting NFL players into their NBA game as a part of their My Team crossover series. Now, while this doesn't sound like a huge deal right off the jump, it is something worth mentioning because we're all excited for 2K to come back, and there hasn't been a ton of information around the game over the last couple of years since it's been announced, but we do know it's coming soon, and now we kind of got a first look at potentially what the player models and the player likeness could look like for this upcoming NFL game. Now, we're going to get into more in just a minute, but really quickly, here's a word from today's video sponsor. Today's video was sponsored by Raycon and the Everyday Earbuds. As you can see, I've got my black pair in right now, and I've been using these a ton lately as I've kind of switched up my daily routine. I've been hitting the gym a little bit more lately, so I've been using my Raycons for that. You need music when you're in the gym, or at least I do. When I go jogging and running, need my music for that as well. And I've also been trying to listen to more podcasts and audiobooks, so when I'm out running errands or busy doing stuff around the house, I'm using my Raycons for that as well. Another thing I absolutely love about Raycon is the fact that they deliver quality audio at just half the price of other premium audio brands. It's no wonder they have over 50,000 5-star reviews. I also love the earbud design. They've been specifically modified through countless design iterations to seamlessly fit the curvature of the human ear, big or small. So they'll never hurt after those long listening sessions, and they never fall out. And with other wireless earbuds in the past, I've always had problems with them falling out my ear. These, they never fall out. I also love their durability. They're sweat and water resistant, so if you accidentally leave them out in the rain or drop them in a puddle, you don't have anything to worry about. They also have great battery life. You get 8 hours of playtime and 32 hours of battery life on the charging case. And unlike other brands, Raycons come in a wide variety of colors to choose from, so you can find the one that fits your style perfectly. Ready to buy something small with a big impact? Click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/Rayweather to get 15% off of your Raycon purchase. With your everyday earbud purchase, you get a pair of the everyday wireless earbuds, plus 5 of the silicone gel tips to help fit any ear, plus the charging case for on-the-go charging, and 1 charging cable cord. Again, click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/Rayweather to get 15% off of your Raycon purchase. Now, one thing that 2K has always been really good with are the graphics, the player likeness, the player models. They've always been really good with this. A lot of people say that they are even better than EA at this, and this is an area where I don't think EA really struggles. I think graphically, EA games are usually pretty darn good. More people seem to have gripes with the depth or the gameplay or the animation quality, but I never really felt like graphics was an area where people felt like EA was lacking. But even with that said, 2K does somewhat seem to be even a little little better in this department with some of their games. And while we finally got to see a look at what some of these NFL player models and player likeness could look like in their upcoming arcade game, it definitely looks really, really good. If you compare Madden versus 2K, I mean, you can see they have a few players that they've put into the NBA 2K game, and I would have to say the player models do look a little bit better than Madden. Now, also keep in mind, in a football game, these players do have helmets on, they have a lot of pads and stuff on, so it does look a little bit different. But even when you look at the face scans for what they are in Madden when the helmet isn't off, it does look like the 2K face scans do look really solid. They look a little bit better and a little more realistic. And another thing that I feel like 2K has always done really well with their NBA game is they update the player likeness for most players pretty consistently. They definitely do have some times and some players where, you know, they kind of let it fall by the wayside, but I think more times than not, they're pretty decent at updating the scans, whereas with Madden, sometimes we have to wait a few years even for a player to get an updated likeness if he's grown his hair out, if he's changed his look up a little bit. 2K does seem to be a little bit more on top of that with most of their players, not all of them, but with most of them. But I just kind of wanted to show you guys this because a lot of you probably don't play NBA 2K, you're more of a football gamer, and you don't know that this actually exists. This is a look at what these players could potentially look like when the 2K arcade game drops. Now, if they look this realistic in the game, that would be pretty interesting because typically in the past arcade style games, the player likeness never looked that realistic because the player models were very exaggerated. When you think about an NFL Blitz or NFL Street or NFL Tour or any of these kinds of games like Madden Arcade, it's always really bulky player models, really cartoony looking. However, we have not had a major AAA arcade title in a very long time. So we're really thinking about arcade games as they were on the PS2 and some in the early PS3, Xbox 360 generation. A lot has changed since then. You could technically make an arcade game with realistic player models. It just depends on which route that 2K wants to go with this. Do they want it to be realistic looking but have the gameplay be a little over the top, or do they want to go the opposite way and have the visuals look a little over the top but have a more realistic gameplay? We don't know which route they're going to take, but with them saying they want to make it as realistic as possible and then seeing these player models that they put in NBA 2K, it kind of leads me to believe that they're going to make this game visually look very realistic, but maybe with the gameplay they're gonna get a little over the top with it, which I don't think would be a bad thing. I think there's a place for arcade games, and if 2K can make a good game with really great depth, people will welcome that just because of the fact that it is an NFL alternative, even if it's not true simulation. We just really have no idea what a modern day AAA arcade game looks like because we have not had one in such a long time, and the arcade games of old doesn't need to be like the arcade games of now. If you think what Madden has done in their yard game mode, kind of similar. The player models and the player likeness look very realistic in that mode, and the gameplay in that mode is still similar to the regular Madden gameplay. It's just that the rule sets are a little different, and instead of being 11 on 11, it's 6 on 6. But the way the players move, the way they run routes, the way they throw the ball, the way they juke, the way they look, all falls in line with simulation. So I'm thinking that 2K is going to be taking a similar approach. It's not going to be 11 on 11. It's probably going to be something like 7 on 7, maybe 8 on 8. So right there, it's already not simulation at that point. If you go 7 on 7, 8 on 8, you make the gameplay realistic, you make the player models and the player likeness realistic, but you switch up the rule sets a little bit, and maybe you add some big hits and you add, you know, a few animations in there that could be a little bit more over the top. Boom, you pretty much have an arcade style, a modern arcade style game, but it still has a lot of realistic aspects to it. The running, the animations, the way they throw and move, the way they look is still realistic, but you're just changing up the amount of players on the field. Maybe you're changing up what they're wearing a little bit, and you're changing up the rule sets a little bit. That still would qualify as an arcade game, and I think that's how you should approach a modern day arcade game, because there's already a ton of other off-brand, I guess you want to call them, arcade football games. You've got Mutant League, you've got Sunday Rivals, you've got STG Football, which is a new game on the market. You've got a ton of the over-the-top arcade style games. We don't really need another one of those games. What we need is something that is a little bit realistic, but it's not a one-to-one simulation. I think that is what 2K is looking to do, and looking at these models that they put in 2K, I find it hard to believe that they would just randomly go out and scan these players and put them in the game. They are probably already gathering this likeness, not probably, but they are gathering this likeness because they have a game that is set to drop at the end of this year finally, so it looks like they're kind of just double dipping on all of the player likeness that they're getting, and this might just be kind of a first look at what we can expect these players to look like in the new NFL 2K game. So it's not a bunch of great big news today, but it is something that I wanted to show you guys because I thought it was very interesting. gaming. Now, if you want to know more about the upcoming NFL 2K game and the news that we do know about it so far, make sure you check out this video right here on the screen.